It's here. Game one of the Stanley Cup final begins tonight, and the Florida Panthers have a chance to write a new story.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, June 4th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X. That is Jacob Winans here on another edition of Winans Wednesday. You can follow him on X at Jacob Winans8. Shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. So, Panther fans, it's grateful to be back here on the show. Jacob, I'm grateful to be back here on the show with you for another recording. And man, like I said at the top, it's game day. And we were talking pre-recording. It feels like Christmas morning. And you were discussing also pre-recording how we don't take this for granted, the fact that the Panthers are here. And like I said in the cold open, the Panthers have a chance to write a different story. And that's with what Anton Lundell said when he spoke to the media for Media Day, as the Panthers flew into Edmonton the day of Media Day. So they're giving, it's once again crazy how calculated the Panthers are when it comes to just rest and also commute time and just getting right on the plane and then right to the media conference. And then just, and the fact that they feel ready for this opportunity. And Evan Rodriguez even spoke about it in Media Day as well, having to embrace starting on the road. So great opportunity that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, like we discussed pre-recording, it is a privilege. This is our third year in a row getting to talk about our team getting ready to play in a Stanley Cup final. So whatever happens, we're grateful for that. But like I said before we hit the record button, a lot of nerves. It's every other fan base in the league gets to watch this kind of stress-free. But for us, it's life or death again, and it's a blessing and a curse. But I'm really excited. This should be an awesome series. It has the potential to be a classic.
Yeah, and usually a lot of people don't like to see two teams going at it for multiple years, but when you think about how last year's ended, I mean, it was pure theater, and the fact that there were 16 million viewers across the US and Canada to view this. Now a lot of people don't know what to expect. But, these teams are different. The circumstances are different. The Panthers are starting on the road. Sam Bennett even spoke about how there's no distractions going on the road for this to start the series, because you're not around your family. You're in the team playing. Brad Marchand even spoke about how he destroyed the guys on the plane in poker, and he said that the IRS might have to investigate him for how much he won today. But I just think the fact that the Panthers coming in with that camaraderie and the fact that they've already had the success that they've had on the road in this postseason, I mean, it's loose in such a great way from what the vibes that I'm getting from what the team spoke about heading into game one.
Yeah, and if you look at the way they've performed so far in the playoffs, the road start has kind of, you've seen it go both ways. They start on the road in Tampa, win both, and automatically they have full control of that series. Then Toronto, you start on the road, you lose both, and now it feels like, oh my goodness, what are they going to do? But you have the comfort of, we're down 2-0, but we're going home with 2 games to play there, and we can get ourselves right back into it. And then you go to Carolina, start on the road, win both again, take full control of that series. So either way it goes, they're perfectly comfortable. There's the positive of, if you win a game or you win 2 games on the road, you have a chokehold on the series. But then there's also the comfort of, if it doesn't go your way on the road, they've already been there. They've already started poorly on the road and come back home and righted the ship. And they know how to play in either situation. So I don't have any concerns about starting on the road. And if anything, I think they have an excellent opportunity to put the pressure on Edmonton right away with a road win to grab hold of the series from the start.
No doubt, and there's a lot on the line for both teams, especially the Oilers, which, you could argue that the fact that Edmonton's starting at home, it adds on to pressure of, hey, the fact that Edmonton's been so great at home compared to the road in the postseason. I know they've only lost 2 games since the first round, but for Florida, I mean, it's a chance to put the pressure on early. The series doesn't start until a road team wins. And it's also crazy the fact that there's so many full circle moments in this when it comes to this matchup. I mean, yeah, we spoke about even last year, Connor McDavid and Sam Bennett. They were friends ever since they were kids. The story of the top 4 picks in the 2014 draft, and now even some of them in the 2013 draft with Barkov and Seth Jones. But even the fact that you see Trent Frederick, former teammates with Brad Marchand, and now they're on opposite sides, which, remember, Trent Frederick tried to fight Matthew Tkachuk in game 1 of the regular season on banner raising night. I mean, also, here's another thing. Brad Marchand and Evander Kane, their dads played hockey together as well. So that's another one of those full circle moments of just how tight-knit the hockey community is. And it's crazy. There might be some friendship, but you're going to war for the one ultimate prize that these guys fight so hard for.
Yeah, there's a lot of those stories, and there's a lot of guys on the team that on both teams that know each other really well. And then going back to last year, I think when this series starts, a lot of it is going to feel like a continuation of last year.
No doubt.
It's going to feel like one giant series dating back to last season. Especially when you consider the handshake line and Matthew Tkachuk and Stu Skinner, and there was we'll see you guys in the final again next year. And I think both teams, there wasn't really a doubt in their mind that they would make it back, either team. And that's kind of what makes it so exciting. Rematches don't always have maybe the fan support. People like parity. But the NHL is kind of a different beast. A rematch is so uncommon. So yeah, there's a lot of those storylines. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that kind of plays out into maybe the feeling out process. I don't think is going to be as pronounced in this series at all.
No, I'm with you there when it comes to that, especially because of how long the series went and the fact that there was so much time off in between the games to watch tape and to know what the habits of the opposition were going to be. So I think that the filling out process is going to be very short for either of these two groups when it comes to just getting the ball rolling. And there are some storylines from last year going into this year. I mean, Leon Draisaitl getting no goals in last year's Stanley Cup final. McDavid and Draisaitl only getting 1 goal on a line with Sam Reinhart and Aleksander Barkov on it, which Draisaitl also didn't really win the minutes against Bennett. So it's going to be interesting to see how he matches up against the Barkov line if Chris Knoblauch decides to go in that direction for the last change. But again, the surrounding pieces, I talked about this with Nick Sararis. Corey Perry and Evander Kane are plus players when they were minus players last year. And that's a big deal when it comes to just the flip in the switch from last year's run for Edmonton versus this year. I mean, the thing is, last year Evan Rodriguez was your leading point getter and he was on the second line. This year it's flipped, so it's going to be interesting to see where you're going to get most of your production from. I mean, yeah, it was a scoring by committee for the Panthers that helped them win, but who's going to be that guy who's going to carry the Panthers over the top? We'll discuss that more in segment number 3 as far as our X factors. But Seth Jones even said in his prior to his first Stanley Cup final that you can't take shifts off against this team. The speed, the fact that McDavid could easily weave through defense. That is a guy that is just on a mission. And the fact that it's a second Stanley Cup final for the opposition that lost. The nervous energy of how they played last year, I don't expect that this time around.
Not at all. The same way the Panthers came out last year in the Stanley Cup final and they were ready to go. They knew exactly what was necessary. There was no learning curve. I think Edmonton is going to have that. There's not going to be any surprise factor at all. It's two really, really good experienced teams. There's not going to be any. There's not going to, like you said, the feeling out process is going to be really short. And I think both teams are going to hit the ground running. And Panthers are going to have their legs. They're going to have their jump because Edmonton is going to. No shifts off. That's going to be the motto. But I don't know. That's the one thing that kind of concerns me about it is McDavid. Yeah. That's a man on a mission right now, and they follow his lead. They've got the experience now. It should be a battle from the jump.
Yeah, and Panthers are going to be prepared for it. Edmonton's also going to be prepared for what the Panthers are going to throw at them. But we are going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss Aleksander Barkov getting surprised by a few people prior to getting not just 1, but 2 awards. And also, there's a big injury on the Edmonton front. What kind of advantage does that bring for the Panthers as far as which lines or deep pairs to attack? We are going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days whether I'm stuck at my desk, a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. If you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. And for my bag of Wonderful Pistachios, the best place I like to have it is in my cup holder while in my car. And when I'm at a red light, I could just reach in, grab a pistachio, and just don't need to make a stop if I am feeling a little bit of hunger. So Wonderful Pistachios definitely does the job. So get snacking and cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Segment 2 here on this Wednesday, June 4th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Want to congratulate the Charlotte Checkers on sweeping the Laval Rocket in the Eastern Conference Final to advance to the Calder Cup Final, where they won in 2019 under the Carolina Hurricanes affiliate and now have a chance to do it again. Only lost 1 time in this entire run, a first-round bye. Their only loss came to Providence, swept the Hershey Bears, the 2-time defending champions, and then recently the Laval Rocket. And biggest stars have been the midseason acquisitions, Jesse Puljujärvi, Kaapo Kähkönen. So big congratulations over to the Charlotte Checkers. So the Panthers organization, up and down, in such a great place. But Jacob, yesterday, right after the Panthers before the Panthers actually practiced, the Panthers were gathered in their meeting room at the Ice Den at the Iceplex, in Fort Lauderdale. They brought the kids from Joe DiMaggio's Children's Hospital to present Aleksander Barkov with the King Clancy Award, which is an award for leadership off the ice. And then Bill Zito said, "Wait, there's another award here." And it was the Selke trophy for him. And I said this a little bit on the crossover with Nick Zararis, but really couldn't really talk mostly about it as we were just previewing the Stanley Cup final. But Aleksander Barkov is truly in the company. 6 players have won the Selke 3 times. But I think Aleksander Barkov getting to King Clancy means a lot more to him for what he does as impacting kids, and especially for him having the suite in the arena for the kids. I'm sure he's absolutely honored. You're on mute, by the way.
Yeah, no doubt. I think having the Joe DiMaggio children present it to him was the perfect way to do that. And that's a huge honor. The King Clancy is a huge honor, and a guy like Barkov who doesn't really want the attention. He doesn't do anything for the attention. That's just the kind of person he is. Yeah, that was pretty special. But he's starting to rack up the hardware now. It's pretty amazing what he's been able to do in the last couple of years. Three-time winner of the Selke Trophy. He's got a Stanley Cup. He's got a King Clancy. He's got a Lady Bing. He's a Hall of Famer without a doubt. He is going to have his number retired at Amerant Bank Arena. He is the face of the franchise. He's got a chance to win another cup this year, but I thought that was absolutely incredible from Bill Zito and the entire organization to organize that. That was pretty cool. Definitely brought a little bit of a tear to my eye to see the kids present him that way. And if you just watch the video and look at the pictures, just the respect of his teammates, the way everyone kind of looks at him, and it was really cool. I loved everything about the way that was put together.
Yeah, and Sam Bennett even spoke about Barkov, the perfect human, when it comes to.
He's not wrong.
He's not. But yeah, and with the Selke example of defensive presence and the fact that the Panthers have so many forwards who could just play and get back on D and even if they sacrifice offense, that just starts from the top with Aleksander Barkov. But that leads me to this point, going back to really breaking down the hockey for this series. Zach Hyman's injury is huge for the Oilers. Mm-hmm. And I was just looking at the minutes distribution of lines for him missing. And now the way Edmonton has their lines put together, it's not a lot of time. Like Draisaitl, Kapanen, and Evander Kane have only played 11 minutes of 5-on-5. McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, and Corey Perry have only played 17, and they're -1. But no goals to 1 goal against, so very small sample size.
Right.
So I think that really for the Panthers, when it comes to this, coming into it, the fact that the only real question mark is AJ Greer. And the thing is, AJ Greer even spoke about in media day, I'm saying, quote, "I'm glad I have an opportunity to play for a Stanley Cup," which basically he gave himself us an update on his likelihood to play. It might not be game 1. It could be possibly game 2, but signs are good for where the Panthers are at from a health perspective. And I think that the fact that Edmonton's forward lines are, as far as like a 3-man unit for the forwards, not having a lot of time during these playoffs, advantage Panthers here.
I agree. I like the matchups. And the lack of continuity for the Edmonton lines, you can't overstate that, because any period of time where they're not clicking or they're not in sync, that's time that the Panthers can jump on them and get an early lead. And I think what we talked about last year, it rings true this year also. The sooner you can get Edmonton to have to go with McDavid and Draisaitl on a line together, completely throws off the entire balance of their lineup. And I think if the Panthers can really expose one of those lines with that lacks experience or lacks continuity, and you can force Edmonton to panic into going 97, 29, 90, for example, the McDavid, Draisaitl, Corey Perry, the balance of the depth is really, really tested. So I think that's got to be the goal. You have to force them to be uncomfortable playing with new line mates, and then from there, the Panthers have been kind of a well-oiled machine with their forward group. So it could be a huge advantage. And Zach Hyman was very, very impactful in last year's series. No doubt about that. He was huge.
Yeah, and the fact that this year has been so different when it comes to that depth whenever you did put those two together. But how will it fare in a Stanley Cup final against a team that has found a way to close gaps, force the outside, and win a lot of their 50-50s, especially on the half wall, and the Panthers being able to just, okay, you see a forechecker coming, chip it up the boards if you need to. They know when to flip the puck out. And the thing is, it the 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 fact is that the Matthias Ekholm and Evan Bouchard pair, that is huge. If you can get to that pair, you give yourself a good chance. But they haven't had a lot of time in this postseason, so that's a big addition. But the thing is, the the pair with Jake Wallman and John Klimberg, they've been at a +4, so they haven't been shooting themselves in the foot. That's the thing, that the depth has been so well. But the Nurse Kulak line is at a -4, and that's your middle pair.
Mhm.
So you're thinking about the lines of Brad Marchand, Eetu Luostarinen, and Anton Lundell matching up against those. So I'm thinking, that could be possibly something that the Panthers, if they are, if the F1 is going and they flip it in, which the Panthers, Anton Lundell doesn't. Sometimes he doesn't look like the fastest skater. He's still very quick to those pucks. If he flips and he's the first one there, that could be a sign of that could be a part of the lineup that the Panthers could really expose.
I agree with that too. I think if the Panthers want a chance to win this, their third and fourth lines are going to have to win over Edmonton's third and fourth lines and their second and third pair. They're That's going to be the recipe. The if Edmonton at some point, if they're trailing or if they are panicking, the offense isn't going, they have to put McDavid and Draisaitl together. What better option do the Panthers have than there? Who has it better than the Panthers, where you can put the Selke Trophy winner and runner up against those two guys, and you don't necessarily have to beat them. You just got to cancel them out, and then
Yeah,
you let the Panthers forward depth kind of run the show. And I think the Lundell line is going to be the X factor for that very reason. I think
yeah.
the Panthers' top two lines balance, cancel out, and then let the third line kind of over the course of the series, kind of run Edmonton's bottom six out of the building a little bit.
Yeah. And let's actually continue that conversation on the other side of the break, where we'll discuss more about the X factors for the Panthers and 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 more. So we'll discuss that and the Florida Panthers brand next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Third and final segment here on this Wednesday, June 4th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And by the way, we will be boots on the ground for games 3, 4, and 6 of the Stanley Cup final. So very excited to be covering the series when the series does shift back to Sunrise. And Jacob, the Panthers have a chance to make history, NHL history. If this series goes to a 6th game, the Panthers will have a record for the most games in a 3-year span in NHL history, regular season and post. So, wow, the amount of hockey that the Panthers have played in this time frame. And I just consistently think about the Florida Panthers brand, global series, winter classic, 2 straight trips to the final. And even Bill Zito spoke about the changing of the culture versus the tax benefits, which we acknowledge that it's there. But he put out a quote that was very noteworthy. Jameson Olive tweeted it out. Quote, if they know if the chicken isn't right, that they're going to get a new chicken, close quote. And I thought that was perfect for what he had to say.
I agree. I think the culture is not what it used to be. There's an element of competition. There's internal development. There is the constant, I guess, the looking for improvements at every possible opportunity, every trade deadline, every free agency period. They're always looking for upgrades, even if they're under the radar guys, even if they're league minimum guys. It's about the fit, and I think a lot of guys have have bought into that. And then just from a player perspective, people look at Florida as like, that's a team that can get the best out of me. I want to be a part of that. And I think that's really important to have. And not many teams can have that. And that doesn't happen overnight. You have to build that over several years. And you also have to back that up with results. You can't just say that. You can't just pitch that. You have to show that. And I think the Panthers have done a great job of making that their brand, making that their sort of their MO. And then they back it up with results. I mean, three straight trips to the Stanley Cup final. Countless guys in the last few years have come in and sort of revived their career. I can't imagine anyone turning down the Panthers, tax advantage or not. If that's a team that comes calling, they're going to get to the front of your list no matter what, because they're going to get the best out of you. And then win or lose, they're also going to get you paid because they're going to develop you as a player, and you're going to end up better than when you got there. And oftentimes that leads to a big payday.
Hey, and maybe, who knows, Nate Schmidt will get a good payday somewhere else after this year. So we'll see. Even for someone making league minimum after he got bought out. But let's go back to our conversation towards the end of the second segment, discussing X factors for the Panthers here. And I have three right here. Anton Lundell, that line has a +8 goal differential. We talked a little bit about how they match up with the bottom six. The Henrique, Brown, and Trent Frederick line, that right now is at a +2 for how their goal production is at 5-on-5. So it's going to be really important to see how they match up, like the battle of the bottom sixes for this matchup. Nico Mikkola is another one for me. Again, the rush game for the Edmonton Oilers scares the heck out of me. And if Nico Mikkola is going to jump into the play, there has to be great communication from the forwards going back, especially if it's the Lundell line and you have Eetu Luostarinen back or Barkov or Sam Reinhart. I feel very comfortable in Nico Mikkola jumping into the play. But if it's the Bennett Tkachuk line that he's jumping into the play, that's where I'm thinking to myself, hold on to your butts here. Whenever they're on. And then the other one, Carter Verhaeghe. He scored the first goal in games 1 and game 7. And it was the first goal of the game both times. And it's so crazy how many times whenever he gets on the scoreboard, the Panthers don't lose, period. So I think that if you get him involved once again in this, I mean, especially when you think his goal production is even down from even last year to this year. 11 postseason goals last year, 6 this year. But the shooting percentage is at a 15% versus 8.6 in the regular season. And I said, I don't know if Erod being your leading point getter this time is going to get the job done. So Carter Verhaeghe is definitely a big X factor. And the fact is, they need to get in Stuart Skinner's kitchen. They know if he's even mid in this series, I think the Panthers will win. Stuart Skinner has to be elite in order to win the cup for the Oilers, in my opinion.
I agree, and I think on the flip side of that, Bob is the Panthers' X factor. You look at last year's series; it was a tale of two Bobs. The first half of the series, he was absolutely incredible, and then games 4 through 6, not so much. They're going to have to get the best out of Bob. You probably will need him to steal at least one game where you get outplayed, and Edmonton probably should win, but you get
like game 1 last year.
Exactly. You're going to need Bob to steal at least one. So he's my X factor, and I think he can do it again. Outside of that, biggest X factor for me is going to be Seth Jones. What can he help you get on the power play? I think the power play is going to have to come alive a little bit. Edmonton's power play is really, really good, and you're going to have to at least hold serve and keep the pace a little bit there. Seth Jones quarterbacks it. What can he give you on the power play? And Brandon Montour last year power play went dry and he ends up getting bumped off of that unit. And defensively, he had a few lapses over the middle stretch of that series,
especially game 4 where he bumps into Bob.
Exactly. Can Seth Jones be a stabilizing factor on that second pair? I think the first pairs will even out a little bit. Ekholm, Bouchard, Forsling, Ekblad, kind of a even trade-off in a lot of ways. Maybe Edmonton has the offensive advantage. Panthers have the defensive advantage with the top pairs, but can Seth Jones and Mikkola be that much of a sort of hierarchy, I guess, a tier above the Oilers' second pair? And I think Seth Jones gives the Panthers an opportunity to do that. If he plays the way he did against Toronto, the Panthers could be really, really dangerous. I think he could be big trouble for Edmonton if he plays the way he did against the Maple Leafs. So that's my X factor. And then, like we already talked about, the third line. I think the third line, if they can outplay either of the Oilers' bottom 6 groups, I think that could be what puts the Panthers over the top.
Yeah, and you mentioned second pair for the Panthers versus the second pair for the Oilers. We mentioned the -4 earlier, so that's really a part of the lineup where I think that the Panthers really have that the keys to try to be successful, whether it's home or road for them. But Jacob, I gave my prediction yesterday. I said Panthers in 6, and the Conn Smythe winner being Sergei Bobrovsky. So I'm going to give the floor to you. Who do you think wins, and who is your Conn Smythe winner?
Well, Bob is definitely probably the most obvious choice. I'm going to go Panthers in 7. I think it goes 7 again. I think it goes a distance, and this time they shock the world and win it on the road. I'm going to go off the board a little bit with my Conn Smythe. I think for the Panthers to win this series, the third line is going to have to be huge. And I think Eetu Luostarinen has a big series, and I think he could win the Conn Smythe. I really do.
At the end of the Carolina series, I actually looked up his Conn Smythe odds, and it was like at 6,800. So the fact that he has multi-point games and clinchers, that is actually a really good dark horse. So
that's what I'm saying.
Put your bets. I mean,
and listen, he has the same number of even strength points in the playoffs as Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah,
I think he could be. He really. I think for the Panthers to win, that third line is going to have to be huge. And if that third line is playing huge, Etu's right in the center of it. I really. It sounds crazy, but I think he could really be a Conn Smythe winner this year. And it kind of reminds me a little bit, his playoffs right now remind me a little bit of like when the Warriors went to the finals and Andre Iguodala won finals MVP. I could see it. I could see it. I think Etu has become a star in these playoffs.
Yeah. Also, I texted Nick Fairbanks for his prediction. He said Panthers in 6. Wanted to make sure I got that out there for before he has his appearance on Friday before we preview game 2. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. If you guys want to follow Jacob on X, you can follow him at Jacob Winans 8. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to press that like button to help the algorithm out, and really can't wait for game 1. So Jacob, let's go to bed, and so that we can get to game 1 a little faster. So can't wait, my friend. And I will see you next week.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.